This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. Winnipeg police have teamed up with retailers and businesses after a spike in shoplifting. For the first half of this year, shoplifting was up 44% from the same period last year. CBC's Zubina Ahmed brings you more.
Whether theft happens every day or a handful of times, every dollar adds up.
Could be $50 in one shot, or it could be 10 people taking $5 worth of stuff in a day, and everything affects your bottom line.
Kevin Schmidt owns Downtown Family Foods. He says there's an increase in daily shoplifting post-pandemic.
Now that there's more people downtown working, more people that have moved back into downtown, we're starting to see that now. So you have more people in the store, it's harder to keep track of people who come in and out of there, and it's harder to keep track of whether or not someone's put something in their pocket. Sometimes you have people just brazenly walk out with a cart full or a basket full of groceries too.
That's why Schmidt has hired more staff and installed a security camera to prevent theft.
Got the safety stickers. We use those on some of our higher priced items. It could be a meat product, it could be a health and beauty product, and we'll put those stickers so that if someone does walk out of the store with something, our sensors at the front of the store will go off.
Winnipeg police have seen the spike. They reported a 44% increase in retail theft this year over last. Moving into the holiday season, Major Crimes Unit Inspector Jennifer McKinnon has a warning.
For those who are committed to being on Santa Claus's naughty list, I have this warning to you. We will be out there. I won't say when, and I'm not going to say where. But if you're going to shoplift, chances are we'll be there.
Police say they will also work with social agencies to help people who steal food out of need.
The Winnipeg Police Service is also working through our Community Relations Division to partner with community organizations. We know retail theft is a complex problem. There's underlying issues of poverty, food security, and addictions.
Retail Council of Canada welcomes the partnership with the police. John Graham from the council spoke about this initiative.
These are police partners from across the province, justice, Crown Services, retailers, private security, and we think that it's terrific to see the Winnipeg Police Service over the past number of months become more collaborative.
15 people were arrested at Polo Park and 10 at Kildonan Crossing last week. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Transit riders may notice an improvement in bus service this week. The union representing drivers has lifted its work restrictions as members vote on a new tentative contract. There has also been progress on efforts to create a new transit safety force. CBC's Cameron McLean joins us from City Hall to tell us more about the latest transit updates. Cameron, what can you tell us about this possible new deal between the transit union and the city?
Well, those details are mostly secret, but Transit Union President Chris Scott tells me this is an improvement on the last offer, which members rejected last week. That set a strike deadline for December 11th, which is next Monday. They also imposed a work-to-rule order and overtime ban, but Scott tells me those have been lifted while members vote on a new contract as a show of good faith.
It was difficult for us to implement that. My members, by their commitment to do overtime and provide the service to the public, they didn't want to have to do it, but we needed to take a step to make sure that the voices of the membership were heard by the employer.
Voting period ends this Friday at 4 p.m. Marge?
Now, Cam, we know that safety has been a major concern for bus drivers. What's the latest on the city's community safety team?
Job postings for 20 safety officers and 2 supervisors were posted online last week. Now, we know that they will be expected to intervene in violent situations while directing people who are in crisis to the help that they need. We also know that their salary ranges will be between $3,000 and $3,800. Bob Christmas is the head of the safety team.
The pay scales reflect we're looking for some fairly qualified people with a strong community engagement, social background, but plus also the ability to enforce the laws and use force where required.
Mayor Scott Gillingham campaigned on a promise to create the safety teams. He had previously said that they would be on the job by the end of this year. But he says he's still happy with the progress the city has made, considering he was only elected or sworn into office a year ago.
And so to be able to go from making a campaign commitment to having a leader in place and us at the place as a city where we can put out the posting to hire individuals so we're ready to train them, I think is still a very aggressive timeline.
Gillingham says he hopes the officers will be on the buses by February. Marge?
Thank you very much, Cameron. That is Cameron McLean reporting from City Hall. A vigil was held over the weekend for 5 people shot a week ago. Roses and white candles dotted the steps of a rooming house on Langside yesterday where the shooting happened. 4 were killed and 1 remains in hospital. Beverly Beardy's daughters Stephanie and Crystal both died. She says Stephanie lived with her on the reserve at Lake St. Martin and always had a pot of tea waiting for her.
I'm still very, very, very hurt that my 2 daughters are gone. I'm going to miss them a lot.
Something so horrific like this, for 4 people that are deceased. We're just praying for the one that's still in the hospital to live through this,
The family says they are grateful to the police and homicide detectives for all their work. Police have charged 32-year-old Jamie Randy Felix with 4 counts of second-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Manitoba Hydro is going through a shakeup. Nearly the entire board of directors is being replaced. For more, we're joined now by CBC's Ian Fraze. Ian, seeing a new board isn't surprising. New governments tend to appoint their own people, but what stands out to you?
A few things, Marjorie. Half of this board is Indigenous, and a longtime Tory is one of the appointees. We're talking about former Manitoba Treaty Commissioner Jamie Wilson. He quit a Tory appointment in 2021 after former Premier Brian Pallister made some inflammatory comments around colonialism. Also on the board, former MPI CEO Ben Graham, he's the chair, as well as Churchill Mayor Mike Spence. Finance Minister Adrian Sala says the new appointees will move Hydro forward.
A new board that will bring the governance, vision, and sound fiscal stewardship to help unlock Hydro's untapped potential. Their potential to ensure we make rates as affordable as possible, to ensure we continue to grow low-carbon economy jobs here in Manitoba, and to advance Indigenous reconciliation.
PC Hydro critic Grant Jackson is worried the NDP is just going to take Hydro backwards. Some of these appointees helped Hydro back when the NDP was last in power, and during that time, debt soared.
Now, Ian, also today, the Angus Reid polling firm suggests Manitoba's premier is the most popular of all of Canada's provincial premiers. What is Wab Kinew's approval rating, Ian?
57%, that's top of the class, 3 percentage points higher than Saskatchewan's Scott Moe. Now this is quite the reversal. The former Premier Heather Stephenson never got better than a 28% approval rating. Remember though that more than half of Manitobans approved of Brian Pallister before Stephenson, but he became deeply unpopular by the end of his term. Here's John Rowe with the Angus Reid Institute.
I think typically you do see higher positive ratings for premiers as they kind of come into office, because there is a bit more of a kind of positivity associated when a new premier kind of steps into the role. But Kinew's has a lot higher than we've seen from some of the more recent premiers that have come in the last year or so.
This survey was conducted online over the last week of November. The margin of error for this poll is plus or minus 6%. Marjorie.
Thank you very much, Ian. That is CBC's Ian Fraze reporting live tonight. A northern Manitoba search and rescue team dives deep to bring closure to families after drownings. CBC's Aaron Broman reports on a recent search for a community member.
There's urgency to this November search. People from 4 Island Lake communities are helping before the lake freezes. looking for a man who went boating the week before and didn't return home. Kurt Mason is always ready with his diving gear when he gets the call that someone's missing.
I don't ask questions. I just jump and go help out right away.
It's the second drowning victim from the region in 2 months. Using sonar and an underwater camera, community searchers found the body. That's when the dive team jumps into action. Mason always asks for a prayer before they enter the water to retrieve the body.
Since I had my wet gear on, so I jumped in the water. Maybe the water was that deep, and it was cold. And it was so cold, like ice pinching you. That's how cold the water was.
He and 2 others went about 5 meters down and found the man's body after about 10 minutes. Victor Little brought the divers back to shore, where the man's father thanked them.
They're always looking for closure. They usually give thanks and appreciate what we do.
There are 15 certified divers on the Island Lake scuba diving team. They're called Ogogik, a synonym for people who go underwater. The team grew about 3 years ago during a massive community effort to find Tammy Nadaway. The 16-year-old disappeared July 2020, sparking a land and underwater search. That's when Tanya McDougall, one of 2 women on the dive team, got involved.
I sang the water song, and I was thinking, as women, as First Nations women, we carry the water teachings.
Nadaway still hasn't been found. Her disappearance remains an open police investigation and something that still haunts the searchers. But they don't give up.
What we do, like volunteering, it comes from our hearts. It's for the people. It's for the people that we're doing this for. I just go. That's how we are. Our thing. It comes from here.
And they'll go out again to help the next family needing closure. Aaron Broman, CBC News, Garden Hill First Nation.
A new traffic signal has been installed on a highway that runs through a southern Manitoba community in hopes of making the area safer. The traffic lights went up at the intersection of Highway 59 North and Bison Drive Anishinaabe Way in Broken Head, Ojibwe Nation. The area sees a lot of traffic in the summer when cottage owners use the route on the east side of Lake Winnipeg to head north. In April, a 75-year-old man was killed when he was hit by a vehicle while walking north on the shoulder of the highway. Following his death, the province reduced the speed limit on the highway from 80 kilometers per hour to 50. The province says more changes in the area are in the works. An Indigenous-led homeless shelter wants to bring safety and security to Thompson's homeless community in its first winter running. Manitoba Kiwawtinawi Ogamakanak took over operations of what is now called the Wellbriety Centre in July. The hope is the shelter will one day add a sobering centre, but right now the organization is ramping up preparations so that no one is left out in the cold this winter.
Place is really helping me out. I was here for the first 7 months and then I left for 4 months and then I had to come back. They have free laundry, free showers, and you get to stay in this nice warm little area here.
So the Wellbriety Centre, formerly known as the Homeless Shelter or Healing Centre, MKO took over on July 1st, 2023, and only been open for 6 months. And this will be our first winter. It is first come, first serve for beds in the summertime. Right now, we're not turning anybody away because of the cold weather. Right now, we're only utilizing the first floor. We are waiting for flooring for the second floor so that we can get use the second floor as a female-only participant area.
Thompson's always been the center for 80 to 100 unsheltered people that need help. But I would say we're always told about 200. I think we're well over 200 right now. And it's come to the crunch of how we're going to do it. So I think with MKO at the helm, and we've got the province give us the 3 big buildings up there to work with the campus that we call it, and the programming that we're planning, I think you're going to see a real difference in a year.
So we have a medical van that we have. So in the wintertime, he will ensure, driving around town, making sure, community members are safe. If he finds somebody who's inebriated and needs help, he'll pick them up, bring them here. So again, we're here to help support them in the best way possible that we can. We should all be treated with respect and dignity.
On Friday, CBC Manitoba held a special day of programming for Make the Season Kind, an annual fundraising drive for a network of Manitoba food banks. The event raised an impressive $325,250 for Harvest Manitoba. The day was filled with live music from local artists and heartwarming stories, emphasizing the positive change Harvest brings to our community. A heartfelt thank you to everyone for making a significant impact for those in need. And again, thank you to all of you who tuned in and contributed. Well, John,
yes.
Some fog this morning, and I know we were under a fog advisory, but it made for a really, really pretty scene out there.
It can be very pretty. It certainly can. It can also be dangerous. I'll explain that in just a second. But have a look at some of the video taken this morning. And, you know, this is the stuff that attaches itself to tree branches and fences and things like that and makes for a very pretty scene. We can also see beautiful scenes when the sun comes out after the fog has dissipated. So, is it hoarfrost or rime ice? So let's talk about that. Hoarfrost actually forms when you've got water vapor already in the air, but it's not from fog. It's on a clear and cold night. That's when hoarfrost forms, when we see those clear blue skies in the morning. Rime ice is a little bit different and more like what we had this morning because it's already changed into a liquid form. So it's a super cooled water droplet that freezes onto a surface, and it's more common when we have very low cloud or foggy conditions just like this morning. Now, rime ice, like we had today, is more dangerous because it's much, much heavier and it's spiky in appearance, but it's heavier. It causes power outages because of the weight of it on power lines, etc. It also creates some very slippery surfaces, as we saw on highways this morning. Not just poor visibility, but very slippery conditions. Right now, our temperature is at -6. So is the dew point. That means the relative humidity is at 100%, and that means we are expecting more fog to form tonight. Can't really see it here on satellite imagery, just the cloud that is really low to the ground. And Futurecast, I gotta tell you, it doesn't do a real good job of finding the foggy conditions overnight and into the morning. This is more where the cloud is going to be, and I'll be tracking a system later on Tuesday night, really, that will move into Wednesday morning and take some snow across northern Manitoba. That same system brings some very warm air into southern Manitoba as we head into Wednesday and Thursday. Visibility forecast, now this is based on a forecast model, okay, so I tend to think that this is going to be a little more widespread tonight and into early on Tuesday, but it does have that potential for some very low visibilities in the southwest in the morning. There's a look at 7:30, and then we get on into later in the morning around 11 o'clock, and this forecast model is showing the fog is actually reaching the Red River Valley much later in the day, on into about 2:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon. So we'll keep an eye on that fog overnight tonight. I do think it is a good forecast for fog tonight, though, with light winds, -8 degrees. We're almost there at this point. That'll be the temperature in the morning, and then more of a sun-cloud mix in the afternoon and a high of -1. In the long range, we've got 7 and 6 with sunshine in that 7 degrees on Wednesday, a cloudy 6, and then a change. It'll start with rain on Thursday night, changing over to wet snow, and more wet snow on the way for Friday. One more thing to show you. This is a little bit of a trivia question for you. When visibility improves after a foggy morning, do we say the fog is dissipated, or the fog has lifted, or the fog has burned off, or is it not C, but A and B? I'll have the answer for you, Marjorie, in my next weather segment.
Thank you very much. I know the answer, but I'm going to keep it to myself.
I know you do.
Yeah, thanks a lot, John. And now the first in our series of special stories produced by a team of aspiring filmmakers right here in Winnipeg. They're all high school grads taking part in Create, an entertainment arts training program at Sisler High School. Their goal? To produce stories about their community. And with the help of CBC Manitoba, they're doing just that. Students' Careel Jazz Cruise Teki Garbreha Waryat and Fateh Brar headed to a Winnipeg martial arts studio where they met a 14-year-old who took up the discipline in order to connect to her Filipino roots. That 14-year-old is now ranked one of the best in the world. Here now is her story.
It's kind of stressful because a lot of people have high expectations for you, but I also feel proud to have a title like that. It's really nice to have some recognition as well. Hi, my name is Giselle Akira Policarpio and I do Sikaran and Arnis. Sikaran and Arnis is one of the ancient styles of fighting in the Philippines, Sikaran meaning foot fighting and Arnis being a type of weapon from the Philippines.
I am Kelly Legaspi, a 5th degree black belt, one of the instructors and administrator of Winnipeg Sikaran Arnis Academy. These two martial arts are quite ancient. How they started was during the times of the Spanish invasion of the Philippines. They make it look like a dance, so the Spaniards doesn't know that they are actually preparing for war to defend the land.
What I really love about Sikaran and Arnis is that it's unique and different from other styles like karate and wushu. It's a way to test your creativity as well as like teaching yourself and disciplining your body on different ways to move. My school, we are currently known as one of the best schools in Winnipeg because all of the Winnipeg delegates who went to Ireland already came home with titles, like world titles. I brought home the 12 and 13 girls bronze and silver medalists for creative weapons and team sparring. As a Filipino Canadian who has not been to the Philippines or cannot speak the language, learning the sport and doing it is the closest thing for me to be in touch with the motherland. Connecting to my culture is important to me because I find that in a lot of my friend groups or just a lot of people that I meet in general who are Filipino, they know lots about the heritage and culture, and I feel kind of excluded from that because I was not raised like how they were. They obviously know dishes and words that I obviously do not, but I can learn from being around the people at the gym. My next steps would to eventually learn all the forms that I need to. Definitely learn how to defend myself in many more ways. Also to really help get Sikaran and Arnis recognized in the martial arts community and make a name for myself.
Israel continues to push its offensive further into Gaza, this time to the south. It's warning people there to leave, creating chaos for those who fled the north. More on that story after the break. Stay with us. Israel continues to push further into Gaza in its war with Hamas. Forces are intensifying operations and moving into the southern region of the territory. Hundreds of thousands of people already forced to flee from northern Gaza are on the move again. But there are fewer places to go and almost no way to get there. CBC's Sasha Petrusik has the latest.
Israeli airstrikes light up the sky over southern Gaza. Casualties jam the hospital entrance below, arriving by donkey cart when ambulances can't reach overburdened hospitals. Gaza health officials say almost 16,000 Palestinians have died, most of these women and youth. Fighting has spread to every part of Gaza, say Israeli military commanders, as they say they're seeking out and killing Hamas leaders, finding some 800 underground tunnels, they say, and destroying many of them. Their mission is succeeding, they insist, through official videos like this.
We pursued them in northern Gaza. We're now pursuing Hamas in southern Gaza too.
It's left much of Gaza in flames, in ruin, and many civilians caught in the bombing. Mohammed Aid mourns his loved ones. We were sleeping safely, minding our own business, he says. Suddenly a bomb destroyed our whole building. My brother was torn to pieces, so was his wife. My daughter was killed. Where else can we go? That is the question almost 2 million civilians are asking as they run out of places to flee, moving to regions declared safe by Israel, only to be bombed.
We believe that far too many civilians have been killed.
Israel's main backer, the U.S., has been urging restraint, but the State Department stopped short of criticizing Israel publicly.
I think it's too early to make a definitive assessment.
Right now, Palestinians have been told to move again, as Israel claims to be moving in on more Hamas fighters underground. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
Now back here at home, thousands of pro-Israel demonstrators showed up on Parliament Hill in Ottawa today. They staged a major rally to oppose anti-Semitism in this country and to show support for Israel in its fight against Hamas. CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian reports.
After nearly a month at home in mourning, it was the first time out for many here on Parliament Hill.
We stand before you with broken hearts, heavy with inconsolable grief.
Including the parents of a Montreal man who heard his last moments in Israel on the phone before he was killed by Hamas on October 7th.
He protected his friends. He wanted to leave. They didn't want to leave. There were still rockets. They lured them into that shelter, and then I heard him watching out, and he said, "They're coming back." And he saw the white pickup, and we heard gunshots.
The rally also attracted those who still have loved ones stuck as hostages in Israel and are demanding their freedom. Ma'ayan Shavit says she only knows her cousin is still alive because the family heard about her from others who were released.
She's a therapist, she's a healer. All she wanted in life is just to help people, anyone and everyone. She never think about herself.
Today's event also comes after multiple incidents Jewish organizations have linked to anti-Semitism, from bullet holes at schools to a Molotov cocktail at a Jewish community center last week.
We want to see the government pull together a task force with all of the local police and make sure that the people that are perpetrating these crimes go away. They are punished, there are powerful deterrents, and that they are in jail.
The government says it is standing with Canadian Jews.
I'm grateful that we have a history of both liberal and conservative governments who stand with our friend and ally Israel and with Jewish Canadians. We are strong. Our organizations are strong. This is our country, and we will not let a small group intimidate us or scare us.
While thousands attended the rally, organizers are also investigating after they say 17 buses they had booked to pick up community members from Toronto never showed up, leaving many here to their own devices to make sure their voices could be heard today. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Ottawa says it intends to reduce methane emissions from fossil fuel production 75% from 2012 levels. That's expected to be accomplished by 2030. Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault made the announcement at the COP28 climate summit in Dubai.
We're seeing here the beginning of a global movement towards almost eliminating methane emission from the oil and gas sector. And to my knowledge, Canada committing to reducing methane emissions by at least 75% by 2030 is the most ambitious goal in the world right now.
2 years ago, a review found Canada was on track to meet its current goal of cutting methane output by as much as 45% by 2025. But evidence suggests methane leaks and releases are not tracked well. Also today at the summit, the head of COP28 now says he understands the urgency of reducing fossil fuels to curb global warming. Last month, he claimed there was no science to support a phase out. Ahmed Al-Jaber, also head of an oil company in the UAE, says his words were taken out of context. An approaching cyclone is slamming southern and eastern India with heavy rains and strong winds. Coastal areas are already dealing with flooding and are bracing for 100-kilometer-an-hour winds. Thousands of people are being moved out of low-lying regions as the storm nears. Schools and businesses have been closed. Airports are being shut down and train travel has been disrupted. Fishermen are being warned to stay on shore. The tropical cyclone is expected to make landfall sometime tomorrow afternoon. India's weather office is forecasting more than 200 millimeters of rain and wind gusts to 110 kilometers an hour. The CBC today announced it will cut as much as 10% of its workforce. That's about 600 employees. The public broadcaster says it's making the move in response to a $125 million shortfall. As Ashley Burke reports, the public broadcaster is one of many news outlets struggling to adjust to a changing media landscape.
CBC Radio Canada is joining a long list of media companies falling on hard times.
We will reduce the number of shows overall.
The head of the public broadcaster announcing it's cutting 10% of the workforce. That's about 600 jobs and 200 vacant positions gone.
We also have the same pressures with respect to inflation, cost of production, cost of operations, declines in revenue related to our traditional television services. All of that has created a perfect storm.
The corporation staring at a $125 million shortfall at a time when many media companies have slashed jobs too.
We're in the midst of a huge disruption.
Chris Waddell, a professor emeritus of journalism and former CBC bureau chief, says it's time for the government to take a serious look at CBC's mandate.
What we need to see, I think, is a very different CBC that has no advertising, that focuses on narrower things, that content is available to anyone free that wants to use it, because that would be a big help to small news organizations.
CBC is a crown corporation, which means it's owned by the government but operates at arm's length and has journalistic independence. Canada's Heritage Minister says soon she's launching a review into CBC's mission.
This is a discussion that we need to have with the Canadian population.
CBC Radio Canada received about $1.3 billion in public funding last year. That's about $33 per taxpayer. As Ottawa seeks to rein in spending, the government has asked CBC, like all federal departments and agencies, to look for another 3% in savings.
Every ministry and every agency is currently doing the work of making a plan according to those cuts. But the final decision concerning CBC Radio Canada has not been made yet.
A spokesperson for CBC says that some of the cuts will start immediately, but the majority of them will be rolled out over the next year. That spokesperson also said that the budget to produce CBC content will be tightening, and they'll be cutting tens of millions of dollars to buy programming. So that means fewer new TV shows and episodes. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Sobering times for Canada's craft brewing industry. Why many beer makers might be forced to turn off the taps. That story is next. Stay with us. These have turned into very sobering times for Canada's craft brewing industry. The cost of living is soaking up their profits and wringing out their customers. Many beer makers are looking at turning off the taps. CBC's Lindsay Duncombe reports.
In just a few weeks, the fermenters at this Vancouver craft brewery will be emptied for good.
And when we finally close that door on December 31st, it's going to be challenging, I think. It'll be sad.
It's not because the beer sucks. This won Best in Canada. But owner Chris Lay says his new landlord plans to raise the rent to up to $10,000 a month. Combine that with the soaring cost of hops, barley, taxes, and well, pretty much everything, and he can't make a go of it.
When you look at it purely logically, it's a no-brainer. Emotionally, much harder.
The problem for breweries right across the country is that everything you need to make beer is costing more, and people aren't drinking as much beer. The BC Craft Brewers Guild says warnings about booze consumption are changing behavior, and those who do imbibe are broke.
We just are not seeing the drinkers. People are not coming in as often to the tasting rooms, or they're not purchasing because they just can't afford to do it. They're buying groceries and gas.
That makes it tough to consider raising prices to cover costs.
I think it would be easy to say 15% of the businesses are very much struggling, that they may not be in business this time next year.
Rent may be especially high in Vancouver and other big cities, but breweries in smaller places are at risk too, says the National Association. It wants to see pandemic loans extended and federal taxes reduced.
Really just to stay afloat through 2024 and beyond. Breweries just need a break right now.
Chris Lay is looking for a new place to brew, somewhere more affordable, perhaps shared. His business plan now includes craft non-alcoholic soda, adapting to sobering times. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Weather Update is brought to you by the art and beauty of the National Ballet of Ukraine. January 29th at the Burton Cummings Theatre. Tickets at nationalballetukraine.com.
Well, John, you left us a little bit of on a cliffhanger there, but speaking of fog, I mean, we're probably going to be in store to see some more this evening.
Yeah, I've seen visibilities in the last few hours as low as 1 kilometer at the airport.
Oh, wow.
So we're seeing it drop again. Let's get back to that little trivia question, though. When visibility improves after the fog, is it dissipating? Has it lifted, or is fog burned off? Well, the answer is obviously D. A and B are acceptable, but C is wrong. And a lot of people find this an acceptable term, but fog doesn't burn off. It often dissipates, though, after the sun starts to heat the ground and those droplets start to mix back into vapor. It gives it the appearance of lifting, but a lot of people think it's burning because the sun comes out and the fog condition gets a little better, but no, not the case. These are the temperatures happening right now in our region, -6 now downtown as well as out at the airport. And as we look at the rest of southern Manitoba, yeah, much milder than it normally would be for this time of year. -8 is the normal high, and today we got a few degrees better than that, but watch what happens later in the week when I show you the 7-day forecast at the end of the show. These are the numbers happening right now across the north, where we do have a little bit of snow moving into the north, but probably not until much later on Tuesday. Tonight's forecast, first of all, not a lot going on other than some fog, patchy fog here and there. Lows between -6 and -8 in northwestern Ontario, down to -8 here in Winnipeg, and we only have a couple degrees to go. A little bit cooler in the southern end of the Red River Valley, and then out towards areas like Brandon and Melita, down around -10, -13 in Swan River, -9s elsewhere. And across the north, we've got a chance of an evening flurry, then just partly cloudy conditions in Churchill. A chance of flurries in Gillam, that's more like 60%. And we'll see some flurries as well in the Island Lake region. But lows are on the mild side. And again, the daytime highs tomorrow on the mild side. A little bit more in the way of cloud cover through Flin Flon, Lynn Lake, and over into Churchill. Otherwise, generally a sun-cloud mix ahead of that evening and overnight snow Tuesday into Wednesday. And here we have, in the afternoon anyway, looks like a sun-cloud mix, and I think if we see some fog in the Red River Valley, it should start to clear, dissipate, lift A little bit later in the day, and a mild high of -1, -3 in Kenora, and Dryden, and -1 in Fort Francis.
Thank you very much, John.
You're welcome.
A kangaroo that was on the lam east of Toronto for 3 days has been apprehended. Police say the marsupial was caught early this morning in Oshawa, where she was first spotted on Friday.
So in accordance with best practices by the handlers, the officers actually just grabbed it by the tail and they were able to safely keep her contained in the area. Only one of the officers was actually struck in the face during the apprehension, but he'll be just fine and we won't be continuing the investigation.
The kangaroo was brought in not for questioning, but for an examination by zookeepers. She escaped last week while being transferred from Oshawa to a zoo in Quebec. The animal jumped over the heads of handlers as they tried to move her from a transport truck during a rest stop. The kangaroo, who's about 4 years old, will now stay at the zoo in Oshawa until she's deemed ready to continue her journey. Food has always been pricey in Thompson, and now inflation has put it out of reach for some families. We'll have more after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. The cost of living in northern Manitoba has always been expensive. Now, add inflation to the mix, and a lot of people are struggling to make ends meet. The MKO Food Bank in Thompson expects to hand out around 400 hampers this Christmas, on top of the more than 800 households they've already helped this year. The Mama Weetak Friendship Centre is also handing out holiday hampers to around 200 families. CBC's Chelsea Kemp has the story.
Peanut butter. Our food insecurity in Thompson is quite high because food prices are quite high. It's not only affecting our lower income families, it's affecting our middle class family and high end families as well, just because the price of everything has gone up. Right now we get monthly donations from Harvest Manitoba, so they send us up a truckload of food. It can be anywhere from 5 to 15 pallets.
Well, we only get one delivery per month, so that's a big one. We do get donated items, but yeah, keeping this place stocked is pretty hard. On average, about 150 people a week. Oh, it's up and down, roller coastery.
Well, I have a family of 6, and like right now, on average, like I spend $300 to $400 a week on groceries. And who can afford $1,200 a month on food, you know? And like I'm fortunate enough that I can, but a lot of people can't. There is the MKO Food Bank, there is different organizations that do what they can to help people out when they are experiencing food insecurity. So
Our client list is over 1,200 households. So we go based on households. We know that not every household is one family. In our community, there are a lot of multi-generational families. So we want to make sure that our food packages reach enough for everybody in the house.
A BC man's experience with Amazon could serve as a cautionary tale for holiday shoppers. The expensive watch he ordered was not in the package he received, but he has not been able to get a refund. So he is out more than $2,000. Erica Johnson has this Go Public investigation.
We heard from a man who lives in a remote part of BC on the west coast of Vancouver Island. Leo Steinberg has to order most things online. So he was eager to pick up an Amazon package from his local post office, expecting this watch, $2,100, but it has GPS for hiking and can track vital signs to help with some recently diagnosed health issues.
I opened it right away because I, was looking forward to it, and it was empty.
The box was torn, enough for a hand to reach in. All that remained was an empty watch box and a silicone strap. He emailed Amazon right away and got a reply telling him to file a police report. He did, but Amazon said the document was missing information. He sent screenshots from the RCMP's website with more info, insisted the company had all the details. Amazon wouldn't budge.
I was emailing, calling, it was a nightmare.
Frustrating customer experiences actually serve a purpose for big companies like Amazon, says a UBC business prof. They can offer a fairly generous refund policy, while at the same time limit how often they have to hand those refunds out.
Many consumers are disencouraged and drop out in the process. The companies only has to pay those most persistent consumers that go all the way.
Steinberg says, living remotely, he'll now give other online retailers his business. Amazon declined an interview request and didn't answer a number of written questions. A spokesperson told Go Public the company apologizes to the customer for the negative experience and says it will continue to work directly with him. Leo Steinberg says he hasn't heard from the online retail giant for weeks. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Still ahead, John Sauter is back with your 7-day forecast, and we also have your daily lift. Stay with us. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
Well, fog is likely tonight and early tomorrow right across southern Manitoba. It'll be patchy, and then a brighter afternoon, -1. And these aren't misprints. 7 degrees on Wednesday in the sunshine. Cloudier Thursday with a high of 6, and then a change. We'll see some rain starting overnight on Thursday, changing to wet snow by Friday. Could see some accumulating snow on Friday, most likely in the grassy areas, and then much colder, actually more seasonal through the weekend, and maybe more snow on Monday next week. 200 volunteer mechanics were hard at work this weekend to help repair and salvage kids' bicycles in time for the holidays.
That's right, John. The 13th annual Cycle for Giving took place at Lord Roberts Community Centre. It's a 24-hour marathon bike building session to help distribute bikes to families in need. Here now is your daily lift.
Yeah, I think that's smoother.
This is what giant elves look like.
We're gonna watch because we want to make sure this is up.
We've come together as a cycling community, and we are going to refurbish 500 small children's bikes. The idea is that ahead of the holidays, that 500 kids are going to get a bike and a helmet.
Sure, the nuts are tight. Well, I've been doing this for quite a long time now, and I just think the Wrench is just a wonderful organization. I've always been sort of a bike person. I've been a commuter for years and years, and it's a great way to give back to the community. So now it's even on both sides, and that's what we want.
I feel this is what Santa's Workshop actually looks like, and also the vibe. You'll see we have people running from workstation to workstation, pulling parts and assembling everything with care.
That's pretty good.
Kids, as we know, they outgrow bikes just like that. If they make a season, that's a good thing, right? So it's great to get them recycled and get them back in there, and especially for people who wouldn't, for young children that wouldn't otherwise have a bike.
We'll take a look and see if we can loosen this.
It's such a fun time, and it's such a, the spirits are high, and so it's great.
Just absolutely incredible.
It is. I remember my first bike, and some of these kids will be getting their bike for the first time. It's really going to be a special thing for them.
Yeah, something special under the tree, indeed. Yes. Well, thanks a lot, John. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you back here at 11 o'clock.
We'll see you tonight.